Why was the antagonist, Anton Chigurh, arrested at the beginning of No Country for Old Men? Let's explore this. Why was Anton Chigurh arrested? It's a question given to us after watching No Country for Old Men, based on the novel of the same name by Cormac McCarthy. At the film's beginning, we see the antagonist, Anton Chigurh, arrested. A deputy walks him handcuffed to the back of a police cruiser. We then see him sitting in the background at a police station, where he stands and fronts his cuffs. He approaches the officer from behind. He strangles the officer, severing his carotid artery, and then escapes and drives off in the police cruiser. Here's an excerpt from the novel. He was slightly bent over when Chigurh squatted and scooted his manacled hands beneath him to the back of his knees. In the same motion he sat and rocked backward and passed the chain under his feet and then stood instantly and effortlessly. If it looked like a thing he'd practiced many times, it was. He dropped his cuffed hands over the deputy's head and leaped into the air and slammed both knees against the back of the deputy's neck and hauled back on the chain. Note the line, if it looked like a thing he'd practiced many times, it was. This may help explain why Anton Chigurh was arrested. Chigurh pulls over a car, described as a late-model Ford sedan in the novel, kills the driver with a captive bolt pistol, and steals his car. For the rest of the movie, we're left wondering why Chigurh was arrested in the first place. The story is told in a linear format, so it's safe to assume that Chigurh wasn't arrested while pursuing Llewelyn Moss. Chigurh's arrest happened before Llewelyn Moss came across the dead bodies, the dying man, and the heroin while hunting antelope near the Rio Grande. Perhaps Chigurh knew about the drug deal gone wrong, and was on his way there, was interrupted by the arrest, escaped, then continued on his way. But did he arrive before Llewelyn returned to bring the water to the dying man? Was Chigurh among the men chasing Llewelyn and shooting at him? It appears not, because the next scene is Chigurh at the gas station with the white sedan he stole on the highway. The proprietor notices the Dallas plate. Chigurh changes vehicles often, so he would have changed cars if he had already been at the place of the drug deal gone wrong. We later see Chigurh arriving at the scene with the two men in suits and bolo ties. He asks questions that imply it was his first time there. Who cut his tires? He asks them while looking over Llewelyn's truck. He even asks them for a screwdriver and removes the identity plate before shooting the two men and heading out. When he finds out Llewelyn is the owner, he goes to his trailer park to look for him. Later, we see Chigurh in the same truck the men in suits were in, when he was sitting between them on the bucket seat. Mind riding bitch, one of the men asked him before he got into the truck. And the late model Ford is seen set on fire, presumably set ablaze by Chigurh before riding off in the truck. With this information, we have no reason to think the story is non-linear. There's even a line in the film where Wendell says, "That's very linear, Sheriff." Not that that's necessarily a clue, but it's worth mentioning. So we can establish the time of Chigurh's arrest, but we're left with the question of why the arrest took place. You won't get the answer from the film. The answer is in the novel. The film is very faithful to Cormac McCarthy's book. The Coens had the novel in front of them while drafting the script. There are some additions and some things omitted, but nothing that significantly changes the story. In the film, Chigurh follows fellow hitman Carson Wells up the stairs. Wells turns around to see Chigurh holding a shotgun and reluctantly accepts his probable fate. Before killing Carson, the two talk about the satchel of money, with Carson saying he knows where the satchel is and how he can get it for him. Chigurh says he knows it will be brought to him and placed at his feet, and says this as if it's a fact. This conversation goes deeper in the novel, and this is where the book explains why Chigurh got arrested. If you are enjoying this so far, please consider liking, subscribing, even commenting, because your feedback will motivate me to keep making more content like this. Chigurh is arrested and escapes in both versions, but the novel later explains the arrest through the conversation between Chigurh and Wells. Chigurh tells Carson that he allowed himself to be arrested. He was eating at a cafe and a group of men laughed at him, and Chigurh ignored them. But as he was leaving, one of the men said something he found hard to ignore, so he nodded to welcome the man outside. The man, an obvious bully, went out, and Chigurh killed him in the parking lot. He leaves, gets pulled over shortly after, and is arrested and taken into custody. Here's an excerpt from the novel. An hour later, I was pulled over by a sheriff's deputy outside of Sonora, Texas, and I let him take me into town in handcuffs. I'm not sure why I did this, but I think I wanted to see if I could extricate myself by an act of will, because I believe that one can, that such a thing is possible. He adds that it was a foolish and vain thing to do. He tells Carson Wells that getting shot in the leg by Llewelyn Moss changed him, and he feels he has finally caught up to himself. Perhaps this catching up is symbolic of the Grim Reaper concept that some argue Chigurh embodies. He's always catching up with others, and every person he has contact with either dies or comes close to death. When he spares them, it's with a coin toss. They can call it according to their will, like the will Chigurh used to extricate himself from police custody. So Anton Chigurh was arrested because he killed a bully in the parking lot of a cafe. We're not sure how he killed the man, but Chigurh said he could hear the man's friends talking about a sleeper hold. From the novel. They were all gathered around him. They didn't know what had happened. They didn't know that he was dead. One of them said that I had put a sleeper hold on him, and then the others all said that. We will take Chigurh at his word when he said he allowed himself to be pulled over and arrested by a deputy. We have no reason to think he was lying, since his character is very matter-of-fact and principled, even if he's psychopathic. Interestingly, he doesn't seem like a narcissist the way many psychopaths are. He does what he does not necessarily because he likes it, but because it's what he thinks is the right thing to do. Take killing Moss's wife, Carla Jean. He had nothing to gain by killing her. It wasn't for fame or notoriety or money. It was because he told her husband he would kill her if he didn't bring the money to him. Still, he allowed Carla Jean to try to save herself with a coin toss. But she called wrong, and he shot her. Her death is implied in the film when Chigurh checks his boots for blood, but the novel just says, then he shot her. Chigurh's principles and the themes about acts of will are something to explore in another video. My name is Justin Tobin, and thank you for watching.